Today's video is a bit different. Today I want to talk about Obsidian and the magic they have with two RPGs in particular. Two RPGs, mind you, that had less development time than most games get nowadays or in the past, but still created two of the most beloved RPGs ever made that are more often than not praised over their predecessors. Of course, those games are Knights of the Republic 2: The Sith Lords and Fallout New Vegas. And I wanted to talk about that today. I want to talk about, what they mean, what they put into it, the time they put into it, the things that were in it, and that's what we're going to talk about. I'm not asking for much, but if I could get 20 likes on this video, that would mean a lot to me. But without further ado, let's jump in and discuss that Obsidian magic.
Apathy is death, worse than death, because at least a rotting corpse feeds the beasts and insects.
I think it's best I describe Knights of the Republic 2. It's the best unfinished game ever made, and that makes sense with about 14 to 16 months of development time. You cannot make a game in this current ecosystem in 14 to 16 months unless it's like a small indie title. AAA titles just, you can't make them the way they're structured nowadays. But Knights of the Republic 2: The Sith Lords was created in that time, and it's probably one of the best Star Wars games ever made, one of the best RPGs ever made, and it has a lot of great characters and a great setting, and it's just one of the best games that I've ever played RPG wise. Great characters, and they did that all within 14 to 16 months, but it wasn't without some cost to it. 14 to 16 months of development time means cutting out a lot, like an entire planet involving Lona Vash, one of the Jedi Masters, removing an entire subplot pertaining to HK-47 at the end of the game. There's a lot there with that. Entire interactions between characters. There's going to be an entire subplot on Nar Shaddaa dealing with the Genna Haradan. If you don't know who they are, they were the bounty hunter group that you interacted with in the first game that Revan ultimately destroyed and took out. They would have showed up. There's a lot missing from this game, and of course that is because when you create something in 14 to 16 months, you're bound to be missing something. But to me, it's still one of the best Star Wars games I've ever played, one of the best RPGs ever made, and it's all thanks to the writing team and everyone that worked on it. And I think that just stands about how good it is. One of the highlights of this game is the characters, most importantly, Kreia. I think she's one of the best written characters in Star Wars. Compared to nowadays, the characters that are written in this High Republic stuff, I'm just not a big fan of. I think they're kind of mediocre and at best, just not really well written. There is some stuff I like about it, but also saying Legends was perfect and this Holy Grail writing is a lie too. But Kreia is how you write a character. I think the dialogue she had between her and Atris right here is probably one of my favorite moments in the game, because it's the apex of the story. It's going towards the end, and I don't know, it's always stuck with me.
It is such a quiet thing to fall, but far more terrible is to admit it.
Honestly, that line delivery is pretty good, and it's kind of indicative of who Kreia is. One last lesson for those who need to hear it. Honestly, the Sith Triumph is just some of the best well-written Sith in Star Wars, some of the best villains in all of Star Wars. I mean, compared to what's out in Star Wars nowadays, there's literally a sentient rock, if that tells you where the current Star Wars canon is. Honestly, I could give two craps about Star Wars anymore, and that's crazy because I lived and breathed Star Wars most of my life. That's not saying Star Wars isn't still for people. I think it's, people are allowed to enjoy Star Wars, but I can't seem to enjoy it anymore. I look towards Legends, even though Legends itself is not the glorified Holy Grail that a lot of fans make it out to be. I'm not a big fan of Jesus, Messiah, Luke at all, in the slightest. It's just Legends. Kotor 2's massive improvement over its predecessor, whether it's the removed level cap. Even though there's a level cap, it's 50. The odds of you getting to it is just going to be impossible. There's also, you start off as a Jedi. There's classes beyond Jedi. There's like classes like Sith Lord, Jedi Weapon Master, Jedi Master, Sith Assassin, that you can spec into your character how you want to build it. Do you want to build a character that's good with crits, stealth? You can do that. You want to build a character that can one-shot bosses? You can do that. As well as having new classes to create around your characters. You can make your companions all Jedi, except for like the droids and Hanhar. They can all become Jedi, whether it's Jedi or Sith, depending on your alignment. And I thought that was a really interesting way because you influence how your companions are. Do you corrupt them or do you lead them to the light? Do you lead them to be the next Jedi or the next brutal conquering Sith? There's so much you can do in this game. And of course, building your character how you want. You were kind of limited in the first one where you really had to use blades or lightsabers. Blasters were just not there, but improvements to how you upgrade weapons as well as more variety in weapons allow you to really build your character how you want. And I think that really is living proof of Star Wars in general because it's fun when you can do more. I've seen clips of people just one-shotting Nihilus and Zion with blasters, and I love that. I love when you can. It's a Star Wars game. You should be able to play how you want, and Knights of the Republic 2 does that. You get to explore familiar planets. You get to see the aftermath of what happened to Korriban. You get to see what happened to the aftermath of Dantooine. You get to see planets that were touched by the Mandalorian Wars, like Dux and Onderon. You get to see Telos, Kar's homeworld that got destroyed by Malak and the Sith. And I really like that because I really like the final act where everyone comes together to save Telos. Nihilus seeks to consume the Jedi there, even though there's one who has lost their way. And Karth shows up to save his planet. And to save it like he couldn't save it all those years ago. And I honestly get teary-eyed thinking about it. Karth, now leader of a big commander in the Republic, comes to save his homeworld with the aid of the Jedi exile. It all culminates in defeating Nihilus, destroying the Ravager, going to Malachor 5, detonating the mass shadow generator and destroying it, defeating Sion and Krang, saving your companions to go on to greener pastures. If you read the book, then you know that's not greener pastures for the exile. Knights of the Republic 2 just does more. It does better, and I love it for it. And that really shows the writing of Obsidian and what they created. I think the writing is still there because Josh Sawyer is a brilliant guy who's worked on a lot of good stuff from Pentiment to Outer Worlds. So they've done a lot of good with what they created, and I'm super excited for Valve and Outer Worlds 2. Like, Obsidian cooks. They create brilliant RPGs, and I feel like they need to work on another Star Wars game. Not even in the Old Republic, maybe in the new High Republic. Give them something to work on in Star Wars because it would be insane for them not to. But I feel like we rattled enough about Knights of the Old Republic 2. Let's talk about everyone's other favorite Obsidian RPG, and that is, of course, Fallout New Vegas.
Must seem like an 18-karat run of bad luck. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
Fallout New Vegas was made in about 18 months. That is the time that Obsidian said they could get it done. I believe Josh Sawyer said in a Polygon interview, that's what we set for ourselves. They ultimately succeeded in getting it out. I don't think there's really a lot missing truly from the game. Not as extensive as Knights of the Republic 2, but because of that 18-month period, a lot of the bugs that are kind of common in a lot of creation engine games like the Fallout series were very persistent in the game and caused them to not get their high enough score to get their bonuses. I think the fact that they created such a beloved game in that kind of time stands true to who Obsidian is when they create these RPGs. Nothing short of extraordinary. It's the most beloved Fallout for a reason. You know, Fallout New Vegas is a 10 out of 10 in my book. It's a great game. Wonderful. Fantastic. But the fans, Fallout New Vegas fans, make me want to put my head through a wall. So, Fallout New Vegas, great. The fans, not so much. The story is probably one of my favorites in the entire series of Fallout. I don't think it's as good as 1 or 2, but it's still really good. It's the platinum ship. You gotta get it to control the wasteland. Do you choose to follow democracy or dictatorship, or do you let an autocrat have his way? You don't necessarily have to go that route. Do you want to give the dictator the much needed brain surgery that he desperately needs? Boy, can you do that.
Headshot.
Do you want to take a 9-iron to a geriatric socialite like you do in Bioshock 1? Well, buddy, do I've got a mission for you.
No, a man chooses. A slave obeys.
Do you want to burn down democracy for the love of the game? Well, if that's your preference, you too can do that. There's so much you can do, even after burning down all those factions, House, Caesar's Legion, um, NCR, you still have the option to be free, independent, no gods, no masters. You can give New Vegas what it really needs, and it's independence, even though I think that'll ultimately backfire truthfully in the end. There's so much that you can do with this game. Player choice is probably the biggest thing about it, and it's done remarkably well. See, that's the one thing I do not love about Fallout 4 is if you burn down every other faction, you still have to go to the Minutemen round. You can't wipe them out, and I think that takes away from the fun of playing a game. Like, you should be able to do your own thing. You shouldn't be tied down to one faction, even though you ultimately do have to do independent in Vegas, but it feels like it doesn't feel as cheap as opposed to being stuck with a goody two shoes Minuteman. New Vegas does player choice well. There's not many RPGs out nowadays that really, I think, do our player choice well. I think they give you the illusion of player choice. That they claim all your decisions matter, but it's only down to one or two. New Vegas never had that issue. A lot of your choices matter. A lot of your actions have consequences. Baldur's Gate 3 is probably the best example of player choice. And it's just an overwhelming thing for me to be able to try and sit down and play the game because it is very overwhelming, and I just myself cannot put myself through it because I feel like I'll get sucked in and I'll never stop. I think the gameplay and how you play it is fantastic. It has iron sights for whatever reason wasn't a thing in Fallout 3. Make it make sense. You can build your character in a certain way. I've seen clips of people using like melee weapons, like fist weapons, unarmed weapons, and just obliterating entire swarms of death claws. That's nuts. That's insane. How you can build your character any way you want. Do you want to speech your way through the entire story? You can do that. You can literally talk Legitlanius out of a fight and just tell him to go with his tail between his legs and just leave and never come back. That is a thing you can do. The characters are some of my favorites. I think Mr. House is interesting. I think Caesar is an interesting character, even if a mole rat is much smarter than him. Caesar's Legion is following the wrong leader. They should be following Snuffles, obviously. The best boy, or is the best girl? I don't know if Snuffles male or female. That I couldn't tell you. But Snuffles is the way to go, folks. That's what you really got to do. Caesar's Legion is following the wrong god. Snuffles is your god now. The characters like Veronica, I think, is probably one of my favorite characters I've ever played in an RPG, ever experienced with. I think Boone's complicated. He literally ended his wife's life because he knows life under Caesar's Legion was far worse as a woman. And he still dwells on the past of Bitter Springs. It still haunts him. The NCR is not all sunshine and rainbows as we're led to believe. The characters are fantastic. I think the game itself it's an RPG that you have to play through multiple times to truly experience it. The characters are great, the gameplay's solid, the story is one of my favorites, and that was all done in 18 months, and I think that's kind of insane when you really think about it, that they took 18 months as a challenge and still created the most beloved Fallout ever made. And that's really the run of it. Fallout New Vegas, Knights of the Republic 2, both fantastic games. I can't get enough of Fallout New Vegas. I'm playing through it right now, and I'm having a lot of fun doing so. I think it would be insane for Obsidian not work on another Fallout, similar to them needing to work on another Star Wars RPG. They need to work on another Fallout because it would be insane for them not to. Let's take it to New Orleans. It doesn't have to be East Coast and West Coast. Let's go to New Orleans. Let's go into the middle of the United States and see what happened in a post-apocalyptic world, But, not everything is sunshine and rainbows, and that's why we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Now, this is the elephant in the room. The mismanagement by Xbox and Microsoft for the last several years has really been eye-opening to me. I, at one point, thought Spencer was this great guy. He's like one of us, but I know better. It's naivety to think that these people who are richer than, have more money than sense, are actually like us, that they're gamers, they care about gaming and the ecosystem, and look at the state of the ecosystem, gaming ecosystem now in the last few years, I am concerned for Obsidian. I am concerned that if Avowed doesn't do good, Outer Worlds 2 doesn't do good, that Microsoft and Xbox are going to shut them down like they did. Who is that company? Tango Softworks. Is that what it's called? Tango Softworks? I know what you're thinking, Adam. They had a lot of bad games, but they also had a really good game that did well, gained a lot of awards, and they still got shut down. I think that also has a lot to do with Shinji Mikami leaving, but I digress. And I'm concerned because I think that Phil Spencer and Sarah Bonds and I guess Matt Booty would be excited to shut down such an established company where they've done really nothing at all with their entire work in the game industry. You could make the argument that Phil Spencer's done a lot of good, but all that goodwill has just crumbled because of his mismanagement of the companies he's under. I'm definitely concerned for the well-being of Ubisoft. I mean, not Ubisoft, Obsidian. Well, I also am concerned for Ubisoft because I have a feeling they're going to get bought out and sold. But Obsidian, I'm concerned because what if these games don't exceed expectations? What if they don't do everything they're supposed to? And Microsoft or Phil Spencer, Sarah Bonds get told by the people that really own them, the shareholders, to shut them down. They're not making us enough money. And that's a big concern I have. And we should all be concerned for Obsidian, which is a great company and has created such banger games throughout the years. We should be concerned for the well-being of this company because I wouldn't put it past Phil Spencer, Sarah Bonds, Matt Booty to gleefully shut down Obsidian for their gods, the shareholders. But that's just me. That's just how I think about it. But I want to hear from you guys. What did you think about today's video? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Is there something else that's aching at you that you're hopeful for? I know the answer for a lot of people is they want to see Obsidian work on another Star Wars game or another Fallout game. But that's kind of it for today's video. Love you all. I'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy.